Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars, and it's time for a Luthier's Quick Tip. If you'd like to support my guitar building YouTube channel, visit eguitarplans.com and buy a plan. A link is in the description below. Now on with the video. In this episode, and probably the next episode, I'm going to be talking about guitar pickups. And the reason why it's going to take 2 episodes is because I want to cover the subject from 2 different perspectives. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the buyer's perspective. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about the maker's perspective. And hopefully, these 2 different viewpoints will give you some food for thought when it comes to either selecting pickups for your guitar or making pickups for your guitar. So what am I talking about when it comes to the buyer's perspective? Well, when you think about it, when we shop for pickups, what we're actually doing is we're shopping for tone. And that makes the process of selecting the right pickup very different from purchasing just about any other item out there, whether it's clothing or cars, houses, or anything like that. Those are items that you can actually touch, see, and feel, and you've got a pretty good idea what you're getting yourself into before you write out the check. With guitar pickups, there's an element of hit or miss. You don't really know for sure what you're getting until you install it into your guitar, plug it into the amp, and play it. At that point, you've got a pretty good idea. And unfortunately, it's that process that leads up to making the purchase that can be frustrating for a lot of people. Now, the way that we shop for pickups is that we typically use a variety of different techniques and resources that are available to us. We can use written marketing copy. We can listen to audio or watch video samples of the guitar pickup in use. We can look at the numbers, the specifications of a guitar pickup to get kind of an idea of how it's going to sound. And then last but not least, word of mouth. Now, each of these different methods and techniques has their advantages and disadvantages. With written copy, it's a great way to quickly separate the pickups we're interested in from the ones that we're just not interested in. You can read how the tone is described by the pickup maker, and right away you can tell whether or not that pickup is going to be what you're after. And so you can kind of weed out the ones that you're not interested in. And oftentimes that copy is written by the pickup maker themselves, and they'll put that copy on their website and associate it with the pickup that they're selling. They'll also provide it to retailers who will also use that copy to describe the pickups on their websites. That's why a lot of times when you're shopping for a pickup and trying to get the best price, you'll notice that that pickup is described the same way on all those different websites. Now, the disadvantage with a written description is, well, first of all, it's our interpretation of the meaning of the words that are used to describe the tone. It's subjective. And so when someone describes a pickup as being warm and dark, when you buy that pickup, install it in your guitar and play it, you might think, I think I would use different words to describe that tone. It's subjective. So a pickup that's warm and dark to me may not be warm and dark to you. And as a result, you've got to kind of take what is written to describe the tone with a grain of salt. Another problem is the language barriers. As we're talking about a global industry here. And so when someone writes a description in English and then translates it into other languages, the meaning can get lost. And that can lead to some frustration from the buyers when they think they're getting one thing when they're actually getting something else. It doesn't happen a lot, but it is an issue that I think is important to bear in mind, especially if you're in a foreign country reading a description that's been translated and maybe without the awareness of how the words might mean something different in your language. Now, as far as audio and video samples are concerned, the big advantage there is you can quickly compare pickups, especially from one manufacturer. So let's say you're shopping at Seymour Duncan and you're looking at several different pickups. You can listen to the different audio samples and hopefully they were all recorded in the same manner so that you can make a decent judgment on which pickup you feel is going to suit your needs the best, and you can kind of weed out the other ones. You can also, to some extent, use it to compare between different manufacturers, although this is less reliable because the two different manufacturers are using different guitarists, different guitars, different recording studios, etc., etc. And that, unfortunately, leads to some discrepancies between the tone that you're going to hear when you install that pickup and what you heard when you listened to the sample online. And that, in turn, leads to the disadvantages of using audio and video samples. There are just way too many variables. You've got, well, it starts with the player, the pick in their hands, their technique, the strings, the pickups, the electronics, the guitar itself, the cable leading out to the amplifier itself, the speaker, the cabinet, the room that you're recording the sample in, the microphone where it's placed in front of the speaker, the software which records the audio and or video, any post-production work that's done to the file before it's presented to you, any compression technology that's used to make the file small enough to be played over the internet, your computer or your device, whatever you're listening to that sample on, the software that processes that audio, the sound card, your speakers, your headphone, the room that you're in, and ultimately your ears. All of these variables play a role in what that pickup is going to sound like when you listen to the sample. As a result, there's a good chance that when you actually buy the pickup and install it in your guitar, it's not going to sound exactly the same as that sample you listened to, which convinced you to buy the pickup. However, it's going to get you into the ballpark, and that's important because most savvy guitarists and guitar players and luthiers know that you can manipulate certain aspects of the guitar in order to fine-tune the tone to what you want. So if it's not exactly right, you can change strings, you can change the magnet, you can change the capacitor, some of the electronics, and further dial it in to get the tone that you're after. Of course, that's not necessarily easy for a lot of folks to do because you have to understand how those kind of changes have to be done in order to manipulate the tone. Another resource that we can draw from when making our decision about purchasing a pickup is the specifications. And you'll notice as you are shopping for pickups, oftentimes the manufacturers and the retailers will list out some of the specs for a particular guitar pickup. Typically what they will tell you is the DCR or DC resistance of the pickup, as well as the type of magnet used. Those are the most common specifications that you'll hear. Those two specifications I think are about as useful as listening to an audio sample when it comes to determining the tone of the pickup. It's going to get you in the ballpark, but you need to know more. And unfortunately, a lot of the manufacturers aren't going to include all the specifications of their pickups because they don't want to give away too much of their recipe, so to speak. And they also know that providing all those specifications, it may make them look like they're smart, like they know what they're doing, but most guitar players out there aren't going to fully understand what those numbers mean. However, if you take the time to learn what those numbers mean, it can really help you when it comes to understanding how a pickup is going to sound. Although, since the manufacturers aren't providing a lot of those specifications, it's kind of a moot point. But what you can do is you can look at those specs, especially the resistance of the coils and the magnet, and you can get kind of an idea whether the pickup is going to sound really bright or really dark or somewhere in between. And that will kind of get you in the ballpark, and it will help you to narrow down your choice. But the big disadvantage here is, like I said, a lot of folks don't understand what those numbers mean. And unfortunately, it would require you to do a lot of research to understand what their meaning is. And until all pickup manufacturers are putting all those specifications in there, it's really kind of a moot point. However, as you'll see in the next episode, I'm going to talk about those numbers in more detail because they are a huge benefit and extremely important to the person who's making the pickup. Now, the last resource that I wanted to mention is word of mouth. Word of mouth, in my opinion, is the absolutely worst way to shop for a pickup. Because after all, you're having to put a lot of faith and trust in other people and their judgments regarding the tone of a pickup. And is that something you really want to do? Do you want to use somebody else's opinion to make a decision that's going to cost you, potentially several $100s? I don't know about that, but if you have a lot of faith and trust in a particular individual's view on tone and that sort of thing, by all means, hit them up for an opinion. But when it comes to the guy behind the counter at your local music store, the guys and gals on social media, Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, any of the music forums out there, you got to be really careful about putting all your eggs into the opinion basket, because you're liable to be disappointed. And I'm not saying you should ignore opinions and word of mouth advice completely. What I'm saying is you should kind of keep in the back of your mind that you don't want to use that as your sole source for the decision you're going to make. Instead, just kind of keep it out there, but give it a hefty pinch of salt when considering it. So really, that's what I've got for this episode today. And as I said, in the next episode, I'm going to talk more about how I design pickups. And when I say design, I'm talking about shaping the tone. I go by the numbers, and I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail how I do that, which I think will be interesting, because we typically, when it comes to looking at pickup numbers and specifications, we're doing that after the pickup was made. I'm going to talk about how I determine this before I even turn on the winder. So stay tuned for that episode. And in the meantime, if you have any comments or questions, post them down below. If you don't already subscribe to my guitar building channel, hit that subscribe button, click the bell for notifications every time I post up a new video, twice a week. And stay safe, take care, and I'll see you soon.